he goes, you know. So the one thing you want to remember in any changes you make in your life is do them gradually. If you start eating meat, do it gradually. If you start eating fats, do it gradually. Vitamin C gives me diarrhea for sure. So don't drink it all at once. Spread it out. But the main thing here is you are the doctor. You are the god of your own body. I am not your doctor. I'll tell you the science. I'll tell you what happens when. And so what you want to do is apply this educated thinking to your body and check in with your body and say, what do I need? How will this help? And experiment a little bit. All of this involves a lot of experimentation. But the results will be you won't get into drugs, you will get off drugs, you'll enjoy good health. I guarantee this. I guarantee that you'll enjoy very good health.
My ankles
and the ankles, yeah.
The swelling has gone down.
Swelling's gone completely. So it's a process, and it's a process of uneducating, unlearning what we have believed for the last almost 30, 40 years. And one of the big things that we have today is something called insulin resistance. Anyone know what insulin is?
Yes, pancreas.
Yes. What?
The hormone.
It's a
secreted
hormone.
by the pancreas.
It's a hormone made by your pancreas. It's called insulin. And what it helps to do is ferry glucose back and forth within your body, turn the glucose into fat, pull the fat out, turn it back into glucose when needed, and help the body deal with the glucose. In your body at any time, guess how much sugar you have? Can anybody guess? It's one of the most tightly controlled substances in your body. And here we are eating pounds and pounds of sugar. If your body has more than 1 teaspoon of sugar, 1.5 teaspoon of sugar in your bloodstream, you will go into a coma and die.
What?
Yes. So if you have too much sugar in your body goes into emergency mode. The insulin rushes in, it's trying to clean up your body. And so glucose is a very tightly regulated substance. So it's like a curse and a blessing. You want the glucose and you don't want the glucose. You want just enough. So insulin plays a very big role in that. And one of the things that has happened in the US especially is something called the food pyramid. Does everybody know what the food pyramid is?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So it is literally a self-inflicted chronic disease in about 30 to 50% of the US population, of the population of the Western world today. We want to live, and one of the reasons that we are not living as much as we need to is because we've been taught or we've been told to eat things that are not really good for us. So there's a term called insulin resistance that you will see thrown around a lot, over and over again. And I was thinking about all the diagrams and what goes where, and your words came to me, keep it simple, and people just need to understand the concept. And so what insulin resistance is you eat carbohydrates, okay? And anyone give me examples of carbohydrates?
Bread.
Rice, bread, pasta,
Potatoes.
Cheese.
potatoes. Cheese is not a carbohydrate, it's fat and protein.
Oh, I see.
Huh?
Cake.
Yeah. Pastries, cakes, stuff like that. So these are carbohydrates. You eat carbohydrate, your blood sugar rises. Carbohydrates break down into sugars. So they're complex chains of sugars, and they break down some pretty fast and some very slowly in your blood. And then your blood sugars rise. When your blood sugars rise, your body, your pancreas, go into protection mode, and they secrete a lot of insulin. And so in insulin resistance, your body makes way too much insulin because your body thinks, oh, she ate or he ate this carbohydrate, more carbohydrates are going to come down the pike because yesterday they ate ice cream and cake and pasta and bread and sugars, and so the insulin, the pancreas released too much insulin. When that insulin is released, what the insulin does is it takes the glucose in your bloodstream and stores it as fat in your cells. And what that does is, because there was too much insulin released, there's too little sugar now in your bloodstream. And after you've eaten a carbohydrate meal, many people get very sleepy. They get very fatigued. They get very tired. So what's happening is the insulin is dysregulated. So the insulin made too much, the pancreas made too much insulin, and now there's too little sugar in the blood. When there's too little sugar in the blood, all of a sudden your body is going into emergency mode, and your body is saying, oh my God, we gotta make this person go to sleep or rest or get horizontal. You feel unbearably sleepy, you feel unbearably fatigued, your muscles feel weak, and that's because you have too little blood sugar. So you have a condition, you had here a condition called hyperinsulinemia, too much insulin, and here you have a condition called hypoglycemia, which is too little sugar. So when there's too little sugar, it's an emergency, and for hypoglycemics, you reach for the orange juice. Orange juice is the fastest way to get sugar into your bloodstream. So then you go and eat more sugar. And what happens when you eat more sugar? The whole cycle repeats itself. And so you gotta break the cycle. You gotta break the cycle someplace, and the best way to break the cycle is not through taking insulin, it is not through taking metformin, it is not through metformin. Not to take. The best way to cure this is diets. Diet. In fact, the only way to cure diabetes, and diabetes is a very curable disease, but pre-diabetes or insulin resistance is deadly, because you don't have the symptoms of diabetes because your body is working, your body is just managing, but it's like a big iceberg. You're just seeing the tip of that iceberg, and there's a whole host of other things that are happening underneath that are deadly to your body. So that is insulin resistance in phase 1. And then what you're doing is you got very tired, right? And so you drank more orange juice and you ate more carbs, basically, to stave off that hypoglycemia. Again, your blood sugars rise, right? So your blood sugar has risen again. Your cells at that point say, you know, I cannot take any more sugar. And your insulin keeps pouring from your pancreas. In the early stages, your insulin keeps pouring from your pancreas, but your cells, your organs and tissues says, no, I will not take any more sugar because I already have more than what I need. And so the receptors on those cells become less efficient. But they may actually be starving for sugar. Your cells may be starving for sugar. So they refuse to take in more sugar, but they may be starving for sugar. The sugar sticks around in the body, and it starts to do great damage. You see this spot here? Everybody see this spot here?
Is that a liver spot?
That's a liver spot. Now look at your own arms, and you will notice spots. A lot of these are products of glucose burning and your body moving that to the skin, because the skin is a very safe spot.
Are these them too?
Some of them, that's
Those are
capillary,
bruises,
but
yeah.
some of those.
Oh.
And what you'll find is, as your insulin resistance rises, it'll rise with age, it will rise with your genetics. If you have diabetes or insulin resistance in your family, it'll rise with sedentary habits, certain foods, and so on. As it rises, you will find some of these sort of clues. And those are clues that you want to be aware of. And so the sugar starts damaging organs, and the organs don't want to be damaged. So the body is really smart. The body is saying, how do I get rid of this sugar? And it puts the sugar under your right under your dermis. And it's a good way to get rid of sugar. I actually tried this experiment in myself, and I found this first spot. I was addicted to Venetian chocolate at Ruli's, and literally over here, every day it's sugar syrup. It's pure sugar, syrup, and chocolate.
Oh, wow.
And I drank it for a week straight, one a day. And within the week, I had these little spots. And I said, oh my God, I'm getting advanced glycation end products, this is called Ketosis nigricans for people who want to know the word. And I stopped all sugars, and gradually the 5 or 6 spots faded away. And if you see, I have one little spot. But there are many more. There are many more. And so the sugar was being transferred to safe places. But once your sugar gets to a certain point, it cannot be transferred. And it's going in through your arteries, and your arteries start to get damaged. So once the sugar starts to damage your organs, the body is at a loss for what to do. And the body starts storing your sugar in liver as fat. And many people who have insulin resistance get something called fatty liver. So they get the liver packs on the fat, and it collects here, but that's a protective mechanism. The problem with that is as the fat accumulates, and fatty liver happens to alcoholics too, because the alcohol turns to sugar, which turns to fat, and it gets stored in your liver. So if you drink a lot of soda pop or sugar, exactly the same thing is happening, especially fructose, which is a sugar that the body is not able to handle without the liver. So you get fatty liver. When you get fatty liver, the liver is the place where everything passes. All detoxification happens and all that. And so a great big factory that produces every molecule in your body kind of slows down. And when your liver slows down, a lot of your organs get affected. Your gallbladder gets affected. Your heart gets affected. Your kidneys get affected. You get nephropathy. Your extremities feel tingly and numb. And so the good news here is it's very curable. It's very curable with diet, and a very delicious diet. We'll talk about that. So what happens is your liver is accumulating all the sugar, turning it into fat, and you have this problem of sugar starvation. You can't walk from here to there without being tired, because your cells have blocked off access to their liver because your insulin receptors are shot. So the insulin is dysregulated. So even despite having all this sugar and fat in your body, you have too little sugar to operate. And one of the first ways this expresses itself in, especially in the senior citizens, is Alzheimer's and heart disease. Alzheimer's, in many cases, is nothing but a type of insulin resistance, where the insulin receptors in your brain get shot out. So they don't recognize the sugar anymore. Your brain hogs. It's a big energy hog. It eats about the bulk. 30% of your energy is eaten by your brain.
Even
And all of it,
dementia,
yes, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's.
all that.
These are all diseases where the brain is malnourished. It just doesn't get the sugar it needs. But if you give it coconut oil, that works. And so the receptors in the brain are shot out, and you have this whole array of diseases which are all related to one phenomenon, which is insulin resistance.
And aren't they calling Alzheimer's or dementia now diabetes 3?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And dementia, heart disease, they're called diabetes of the heart, diabetes of the brain, and if you change the macronutrient ratios, all of a sudden the person starts talking, thinking, they can draw better, write better, and so on. So that is the second stage of insulin resistance. And then the third stage is full-blown diabetes or other diseases that are broadly defined as metabolic syndrome. So you keep hearing people say metabolic syndrome, inflammation,
Is it
metabolic.
That's metabolic.
Metabolic. So that's insulin resistance type 2. And you're going to say, what does it mean? Well, how do I feel? You feel constant hunger. You feel constant hunger, and yet you're tired. You have an inability to lose weight. You pack on pounds, especially in your midsection. You crave a great deal of carbohydrates. You crave sugars. You feel great fatigue after your meals. You feel the need to take a siesta. You have aches and pains all over your body because your body is not being nourished properly. You have abdominal obesity. You've got increased fat storage in your abdomen, and I'll show you an MRI of an abdomen with insulin resistance versus an abdomen without insulin resistance. Your triglyceride levels go up dramatically. Your LDL levels go up dramatically. Typically, you have estrogen dominance and a low thyroid as a result of insulin resistance. So the minute you have insulin resistance, your thyroid starts to shut down. And if you take that out of the picture, your thyroid gets activated. And your thyroid will determine what your metabolic rate is. So your thyroid tells your body you have to burn X calories in X time, but it turns sluggish, and so you can't do as much. You have this hormone imbalance between insulin and two other hormones. And if you don't remember everything, that's fine, but just remember insulin. The two other hormones also govern how your body metabolizes food and how your body stores energy. And they're called leptin and ghrelin. And we'll talk about those later. A lot of young women get something called PCOS. Anyone heard of PCOS?
No.
That's polycystic ovarian syndrome, where you have very, very painful, crampy periods.
Oh,
You have tumors on your uterus. You have fibroids. You have just painful periods. It's like a continuous monthly cycle of pain. So that's polycystic ovarian syndrome. You get facial hair. You get acne. You have infertility. I know of women who got on a different diet, got rid of their insulin resistance, and in 2 months they were pregnant because the hormonal cycles got regulated. And so in the meantime, what are you seeing in movies like, what was the name of it?
What the Health?
What the Health? Is you're eating too much. You're eating too much. You're consuming too, it's not that you're eating too much, it's that you're eating the wrong kinds of foods.
Yeah, they said, eat carbohydrates, they're so good for the body.
Yes, yes. And in a matter of fact, people are eating more carbohydrates. And all of these things are an epidemic. It's a very avoidable epidemic. And it's, the food pyramid is really upside down. To my mind, we are putting an entire generation of little children at risk, working age people at risk, and the elderly especially at risk with these kinds of diets that are de rigueur in public institutions, in hospitals, senior center cares, in jails, in schools. We're feeding our children the same diet that we use to make animals fat. And that's just terrible. Our school lunches are loaded with carbohydrates and have no fats. Your children's brains are growing, and 70% of your brain is fat. And so these kids are hungry. They're hungry, hungry, hungry. So if they don't find the fats in their food, they're going to the soda pop machine, for which the school gets a nice commission, and they're drinking sugars, which the body then turns to fat. What an inefficient way to get your fats.
I was going to say, I don't know if any of you saw Michael Moore's film, Where Do We Invade Next?
Yeah, I was just thinking of that.
It's not about wars and fighting. I avoided watching it for a long time because I thought it was about wars. But he actually goes to visit a school in France, a cafeteria, and he shows the kids in France what the American tray looks like from the cafeteria. They can't even identify what the food is because it's all this mixtures of globs of stuff, you know.
And soybean, a lot of soybean.
And whereas in the French school, everything is from scratch and it's all natural and I mean, all the courses, you know.
It was like a 4-course lunch.
Oh,
with cheeses at the end.
So I mean, yeah.
It's a big difference, big difference.
Yeah.
So there's a doctor by the name of Jason Fung. Anyone who has insulin resistance or pre-diabetes or diabetes should listen to some of his talks. He has a very good explanation of what exactly happens, and that's the sort of the insulin resistance fatty liver issue related to insulin resistance. And so the main thing to remember is weight weight gain or insulin resistance is not related to eating more or eating less. It is something that is governed by your hormones. That's the key thing to remember. You don't grow fatter by eating more. I'm an eater. I'm an eating machine. You know, my children are eating machines. We probably put away as many calories as a man does. So, and there are people who eat 500 calories per day, and they just put on a lot of weight. So your weight is not regulated by how many calories you eat, which is the norm in medical thinking today, but rather by your hormones. And one of the primary hormones is insulin. So glucose goes into your blood, high insulin is created. This creates overweight. Overweight creates fatty liver because that sugar has to be stored someplace, and the fatty and fructose is contained in a lot of soda pop and juices and so on. And that is a double whammy to the liver. So you got fatty liver, and what that's doing is producing insulin resistance, meaning no amount of insulin is now going to work, and that is type 2 diabetes. Towards the end, it turns into type 2 diabetes. And then what happens is your pancreas get exhausted, and they say, okay, I hang up, I turn in my keys, I cannot make any more insulin. And that's when the type 2 diabetics start to need insulin shots, because your pancreas are exhausted. But if you change your macronutrients, you can literally transform your body and get your insulin sensitivity back. And it's very, very easy to do and very, very painless. And in my opinion, it's delicious, but you might try it before you say that.
Is Fung on YouTube? I mean,
He's
is that
on
where-
YouTube. He's
Okay.
on YouTube. He writes articles. He's a nephrologist who treats people with insulin resistance, and he's had very good success.
And does he suggest no insulin?
Oh no!
Or no-
None of
no
his
metformin?
patients. No, none of his patients are on any drugs. It's
Wow.
purely lifestyle, and he has cured severe diabetics
Mm.
on 24 units of insulin, completely off meds.
Wow.
Yes.
Dr. Jason.
Jason Fung. There's another doctor called Dr. Eric Westman. Go to his YouTube videos. He works at the Duke Lifestyle Clinics, and he does a lot of sort of dietary intervention as
What's
well.
his name?
Dr. Eric Westman.
Westman.
Westman. Two amazing doctors. And so, in very simple terms, what insulin is doing is, it's like a key that goes into your cells. So, once insulin goes into the cell, this trap door opens up. There's a trap door here, and there's these glucose molecules. These are the carbohydrates from your food, and when insulin goes in there, it says, okay, cell, open your gates up to this glucose. The glucose goes in, it gets converted into fats inside the cell for storage. And that's literally how simply this insulin hormone works. It goes to the cell, gives it a signal, tells it to open the glucose trapdoor. The glucose goes in, it turns into triglycerides, which is a fat, and the fat gets stored in the cell, and now the cell has things to munch on when it needs to produce energy. So the cell is properly nourished. In hyperinsulinemia or insulin resistance, there's too much insulin. There's too much insulin, and the cell goes, whoa, 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 I don't have so many receptor sites, and you're inundating me with sugar. I don't want it. So this shuts down. So this gateway doesn't open, which means the glucose trapdoor doesn't open, which means your glucose is hanging out in your bloodstream. And
So actually, when you're saying your cell is storing the glucose transformed as fat,
Yes.
this is good fat
this
storage.
is good fat storage.
Okay,
But it can turn bad if there's too much fat.
right.
At
No,
some
but I mean,
point.
if it's getting in. And
Yes, yes, yes. So it's a very, very good thing because your cells cannot live without that energy, the fat energy. So now the glucose is here. The glucose cannot be in the bloodstream more than a teaspoon. So this glucose is now being shunted for emergency, as an emergency measure to your liver. So from when this door gets shut down, your glucose is going to your liver, and there it's getting stored as fat, which makes your liver very inefficient. So that's insulin resistance at a cellular level. Yes, genetics and aging contribute to insulin resistance. As time goes by, you get a little bit more insulin resistant, but there are cures for it. What is really causing our insulin resistance today is a high carb processed food diet. A lot of medications cause you to have insulin resistance, meaning they'll wipe out the ability of your insulin to work or for your cells to deal with the glucose and fats appropriately. And a sedentary lifestyle. So it's absolutely critical. Everybody go for a walk every day. If nothing else, go for a walk. It's absolutely critical that we not eat high carb processed foods if we want to not have insulin resistance and medications. A lot of antipsychotic medications cause insulin resistance. They will cause obesity, Parkinson's, schizophrenia, bipolar disease, and so on. All of these medications cause severe loads on your liver, your kidney, and they cause insulin resistance.
Wow.
So you have your aging, but if someone started out in a group, a culture, a civilization, always having the proper balance of foods and everything, would that aging be a factor for instance?
Not a big factor at all.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
not-
So aging by how we've abused.
Oh, by the how exactly. So a very good point. Aging by year after year, how much we abuse our body would result in something like this. And by the same token, it ain't aging anymore. Little children have type 2 diabetes. Little children have abdominal fat. So your genetics and aging, I would say, are literally under 5% of the equation, and the bulk of it is lifestyle. The bulk of it is your lifestyle. So if you wanted to know very simply, I'm walking out the door now because it's too much stuff. What do I have to do to reduce my insulin resistance? You decrease your carbohydrate intake, which will decrease your circulating insulin, which will decrease your insulin resistance. So when you want to reach for that candy bar or the granola bar, reach for a stick of cheese, reach for a stick of butter, and just by snacking differently, you will reduce your insulin resistance.
I like butter.
There you go, yeah.
A week and a half ago.
Get a little cooler in your room, put butter, a week's worth of butter in it, get those icy bags, and then bite into butter if you feel like a snack. Raw butter is better than organic pasteurized butter, but any butter will do.
And read the labels, because there's so much sugar in so many products now. Without even realizing it, you're eating sugar.
Chips, dip, everything has added sugar.
So that's a very simple way of immediately reducing your circulating insulin. You will feel better. You will find you have more energy, your brain's clearer, you have less fog, your joints hurt less, your heart's better, your circulation's better.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm on psychotic medications, and
They will cause
very
insulin
sorry.
resistance.
I
Yeah.
wonder how to cope with this.
If you're on the right diet, there's a good chance you'll be able to wean off of some of those medications. I know of people who weaned off of 15 medications after they changed their diet. And the other problem is one medication leads to another disease for which there's another medication which leads to another set of conditions. So it's a domino effect of medications. If you let your body fix itself, it's intelligent enough to fix itself.
Thank you.
There's epidemiological evidence that something happened in between 1976 and 1980 that caused a big obesity epidemic in the United States. So things were moving along okay, 10 to 15% of the population was overweight, and today about 40+% of the population is overweight. And guess what happened here?
High fructose corn syrup? No.
That too. That happened a little bit later.
High
but
fructose corn syrup.
What was that?
high fructose corn syrup definitely happened. It happened around here.
Margarine.
That's awful.
Margarine happened a little bit earlier. Something else happened here.
Breakfast cereals.
That too. That started happening at about this point.
Candy bars,
Candy bars,
cake,
No, they-
cakes.
pies.
Yep.
Oh, being told
High
not to
carb,
eat
simple.
saturated fat.
Bingo.
There you go.
Bingo.
Oh.
What is it?
the food pyramid got invented in this period. The FDA came up with a food pyramid and said, American citizens, you're gonna eat 5 to 10 servings of carbohydrate every day.
Oh.
You're gonna eat 3 to 4 servings of vegetables. You're gonna eat 2 to 4 servings of meat, and almost no fats.
Oh, God.
And as soon as this food started being served in public institutions, because you had to abide by the food pyramid in order to get funding, schools, hospitals, and so on. We had an epidemic of obesity that has not gone down.
Oh, yeah. Change now. That's horrible.
Yeah. And in case you think it happened to a certain age group, it happened across the board. Amongst the 18 to 29-year-olds, the epidemic took off. Amongst the 30 to 44-year-olds, the epidemic took off. The middle-aged people and plus, the epidemic took off. And 65 and over, it went through the roof. This is when more and more fructose, margarines, corn syrups, genetically modified stuff, polyunsaturated fats started getting added to the diet.
Oh, wow.
So this is when the low-fat guidelines came into being.
Ice cream. Oh, my God.
That's
Exactly when I started gaining weight. That could be my weight gain right
That's
there.
not what happened to me,
Yeah,
too.
yeah. And there are women who are so tortured by this, they're doing these diabolical diets and, the fen-phen diet killing women, the Weight Watchers, which is a pretty big scam, and yo-yo diets when the simple solution was right under your nose, but we were a very misguided nation. And it's these 18 to 29-year-olds that are figuring the science out now with the internet and saying, holy moly, I should really be eating a high-fat diet, not a high-carbohydrate diet. And they're seeing great results. We had a party, when Katie, my daughter, came, we had a party and we invited a family over. And there were 2 young boys, 22 and 24, and they are on a ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting. They were like balls. They had put on 80 pounds. They were about my height, and they were 80 pounds overweight, and they're like beautiful creatures now. But they took the trouble to figure all this out. They learned about, the weightlifting community, the bodybuilding community is far more up on the science than the general public is. And they have recovered their health, but they could have carried on, and in another 10 years they'd be dead.
Did you say they went on a ketogenic diet?
Ketogenic intermittent fasting diet, and their bodies are sculpted. And these were children, in their 15s and 16s and teens. They were enormously overweight. And the parents thought they were doing the right things.
I still find it hard when I'm cooking, if I've saved the chicken fat from some chicken that I might have sauteed or whatever, and use that fat the next time I'm sauteing onions or something else.
You feel the guilt.
Well, I feel, this is that saturated fat that I'm supposed to avoid, but I don't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I must say, I always kind of feel as if I hope they're right.
This should give you hope, because what they said was absolutely not right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think also what happened since the 80s, if you think about it, food has become like pornography.
It is pornography,
everywhere,
yes.
It's a boom in restaurants and
People eat out more.
and just food products everywhere tempting you. And, what I'm saying?
Oh, my God, yeah.
Yeah, back in the 50s, people ate out maybe once a week. Now people eat out 3 times a day, Why would a restaurant cook with organic food and ghee and raw butter for you? They're not. So, big factor. So this is the USDA food pyramid, and that recommends 6 to 11 servings of carbs, 2 to 4 servings of the fruits and vegetables, 3 to 5 servings of that, 2 to 3 servings of eggs and nuts, milk, cheese, yogurt, 2 to 3 servings. Use fats sparingly, and use polyunsaturated fats like soybean oil, canola oil, and corn oil, which are toxic oils. So if you had to make one investment, I would say invest in butter and invest in a good sea salt. If you got a budget for nothing else, buy good butter, buy good sea salt, everything else will handle itself.
And what would, so good sea salt, you were telling us regions to look for.
Himalayan salt, the Utah Redmond sea salt, Hawaiian salts, Balinese salt, Celtic salts, there's all sorts of salts, just not refined salts because they contain 60 to 80 minerals, and our food is washed out of minerals, so there's very few minerals, and the sea salt is giving you very precious minerals.
I use Celtic salt a lot, but I always, it always looks kind of dirty to me. It always
Yes,
looks as
yes.
if it's kind of got a little
Crud in it, that's the precious part.
Yeah.
What is the name of a good salt?
Celtic, CELTIC, or you can get the Redmond salt, REDMOND.
Say it again, Redmond?
Redmond, and Drivers has both. So that's the USDA's food pyramid, and in my view, this has single-handedly caused an epidemic of ill health in a nation that was otherwise pioneering, healthy. America in the 1800s was swimming in butter. Everything was cooked in butter. People were not overweight. People were very active, and there was no heart disease.
Oh, so you're saying this is good.
It's good. Butter is very good.
Yeah.
So when the weight gain happened between 1976 and today, what happened in our eating patterns? Carbohydrates between 1971 and 2000 went up 70%. Our carbohydrate consumption went up 70%, almost 67.7%. Our protein stayed about the same. Our fats declined by about 5%. But you know what changed the most? Our saturated fat consumption went down by almost 45%.
Oh, wow.
People stopped eating butter. People stopped making their pie crusts with lard. They stopped using tallow. Indians stopped using ghee because their doctors told them it would give them heart disease. And with that, there was an epidemic of heart disease, diabetes, and severe insulin resistance. This is in grams, so this is, people started eating 67 carb grams of carbs, and they reduced their saturated fats by 45 grams daily. That's a big change. So you're taking the fat out of the equation, you're adding back polyunsaturated fats, which are very, very different than normal, natural fats, and you're adding in a boatload of carbs.
Is my brain having such difficulty with this because I've been too educated to think the other way?
Yes.
My
Yes.
brain is saying, how can that be true?
Your brain is saying, no, 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 this is not true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they say it so many times. Every advertisement on, television.
Yeah, but you would think with
And they're
even-
often sitting there with a white coat on.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
very
the main,
official.
that's the main thing.
But you would think that in the time that I've been coming to this class, that my brain should have changed more.
Oh, it takes years.
And they say it takes 21 repetitions to change a habit.
Ah,
So you have to kind of hear these things over and over enough times.
It's
to-
driving me to drink.
Have a stick of butter instead.
But you also have to resist your family, which
Yes.
you come home and say, well, I'm gonna have more butter. Mom,
Yes.
don't
What are you doing?
have more butter.
Yes.
You know, I mean,
I like
you're often,
Yes. Castigated. for
because
that.
they've been inundated with
Yes.
all
Yes.
this information.
Richard, my partner, sees me eating butter sometimes, he shakes his head and he goes, I don't know where that's going. I sure feel good. Yeah.
I lived in with a 91 until 96-year-old, and she was diabetic too. And by changing her diet, she completely got off of all medication and was no longer diabetic too. And we got rid of the bad oils, and we got but she had determination, to live a long life, and she lived till she was 97. Whereas on the other hand, I helped take care of someone who was 80, and she was on the medications for diabetes. She said, oh, if I'm on the medication, I can eat this. her pantry was filled with, you know, Danishes and candy bars and everything, and she died at 81. So, you know, she hated that I kept saying I can help you get off medication. Yeah.
All right, who's seen this article in the USA Today? Coconut oil isn't
Oh,
healthy.
yeah.
It's never been healthy.
Oh, baloney.
So let us
Recently.
recently, June 16th, as a matter of fact. So once and for all, we should put that to rest. Coconut oil is one of the healthiest oils you can consume. It's funny, but 37% of the nutritionists in the country, which is the American Dietetics Association, educated nutritionists, think coconut oil is healthy, but 72% of the public think coconut oil is healthy. Do you see the disconnect?
Mm-hmm.
The general public has gone way past what the doctors and the nutritionists are telling. They've cottoned on to the fact that it's one big con. They're going out and eating coconut oil, and USA Today is saying coconut oil is not good for you because the 37% of the nutritionists and the doctors are saying it's not good. Coconut oil is a very traditional oil which cures athlete's foot, toenail, and other fungal infections. So if you have any kind of yeast and fungi, eat a lot of coconut oil. It cures pimples and acne, dementia and Alzheimer's. People who are in coconut oil improve dramatically. People with Alzheimer's and dementia. You can get lice out of your hair by putting coconut oil in it. And you know, if it's cold outside, it freezes, and then you just comb it out with a knit comb. It cures stretch marks, warts in particular. It is very antiviral. CD4 counts in HIV patients go up dramatically when they are on a coconut oil diet. So it's very antiviral because it gums up the surfaces of the replicating viral particles. Cuts and burns, eczema and psoriasis, improves dramatically. Thrush, you know what thrush is? Babies who are on antibiotic regimens or immunosuppressed people have this coating on their tongue. Coconut oil ingestion will cure that. Bladder infections, yeast infections, heartburn, reflux, and indigestion. Coconut oil is very digestible because it has short chain fatty acids. So I can't say enough good things about coconut oil. If you can stand it, please eat it. It's cheap, it's fully saturated, it's got short chain fatty acids that get digested in a very different way than the polyunsaturated fatty acids.
Is the Trader Joe coconut oil as good as other coconut?
Yes.
It doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter. They're
As
minimally,
long as it's organic?
yeah, as long as it's organic.
And maybe the difference between refined and non-refined.
Yes,
might
you
be.
should try and get cold pressed coconut oil where possible, where it's not been heated to high
What's the
temperature.
term? Cold press?
Cold pressed.
Or cold press?
Cold
Virgin?
pressed, yes.
Does it say virgin on it? Mine says virgin.
Virgin is a kind of a marketing term,
Well,
but you wanna-
unrefined.
unrefined.
Right.
You want to go for
Because
the
at Trader Joe's
unrefined.
they choose the
Yeah.
two.
Unrefined can be hot pressed, so you want the unrefined cold pressed as much as possible.
How do you get this into you? Do you just eat it straight?
Yeah, cook your vegetables. Spinach and coconut oil and garlic is amazing. Brussels sprouts and coconut oil and garlic and onions are amazing. You can eat it straight if you want. You get coconut cream, you can eat coconut milk, cream, oil.
Put the oil in your coffee. A
There
lot of
you
people do that.
Yes.
And,
How do you compare this to olive oil?
Olive oil is largely monounsaturated, and monounsaturated coconut oil is largely saturated. So it's much less fragile, it's much more stable, much more heat stable. If you want to cook, you want to cook in a saturated fatty acid. It has fewer double bonds between the carbons.
It's better to heat when you're sauteing, to do it with coconut oil than with olive oil.
Yes,
And save
I would
your
say
olive oil for your
For
salads
salads.
and things.
Good point, yes.
Yeah.
Eat your olive oil raw and coconut oil you can use for cooking, but many people use it raw too.
I'm taking coconut milk because I'm thinking my diarrhea might be lactose intolerance, but when I wake up at night and I can't sleep, I heat it, you know. Like,
Yes. That's
a
wonderful.
little bit.
And does it agree with your body, the coconut
It
milk?
seems to,
Okay.
but I want to make sure I'm getting the right brand and not
Yes.
that
Get organic coconut milk And it's highly unlikely that coconut products are doctored with herbicides and pesticides, because you know coconuts are pretty foolproof. I mean they are disease proof, and they come from the east, and there's plentiful supply of coconut and palm oil, and it's not doctored. So even if you did not get the organic, chances are you're gonna get pretty darn good quality coconut oil.
I've noticed that the coconut milk from Trader Joe is quite different from, say, the coconut milk from Whole Foods, which Whole Foods organic coconut milk you can pour out, whereas the Trader Joe coconut milk tends to get
Liquid at the bottom and
yeah,
solid
right.
at the top.
What's going on there?
It may not be as homogenized. Milk, but generally, you know, when you look at raw milk, the cream floats to the top, and
Right,
there's milk at the
right.
bottom. So it could be in the process.
But there's no, that doesn't mean one's better than the other.
No.
Okay.
Generally speaking, I would say if there's more fat, it's gonna be much more homogenized. Whereas if there's a lot of water in it, the water's gonna settle to the bottom and the fat will float to the top. So that would be my thinking.
So the more liquid one would be the better one, you
Or
say?
this more equivalent one, the more homogenized one might be the better one.
Which would be?
The one that pours easy.
The one that pours easy
Yeah,
is
pours
the better
easy,
one,
yeah,
yeah, okay.
On the other hand, you wanna see if it was doctored, so maybe you wanna ask those people.
Whether it's what?
Whether it was homogenized. You don't want
Yeah.
homogenized
No,
milk.
I see.
Allergies, ear infections. My mom used to put coconut oil in our ears if we had earaches. It's wonderful. Cold and canker sores. You know those cold sores, mononucleosis, the dorm diseases, the kissing diseases. Coconut oil will help with. Pink eye, ulcers, dry and damaged hair. You can put it on top. You can eat it. I would recommend eat it. Chickenpox and shingles. Why chickenpox and shingles? Because those are viruses. Those are viruses, and it kills viruses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Sore throat is great for weight loss. It's great for oil pulling. You know, everyone knows oil pulling. You gargle with oil and you spit it out 15, 20 minutes.
Well, then maybe it's not good for me if it's causing me weight loss, because
Yes.
I'm putting weight on.
It's gonna rev up your metabolism. For you, I would recommend butter.
Wow.
Butter or ghee. Ghee has no milk solids in it, and ghee might be a better thing for you.
I hate to ask, what is key? Is it the...
Ghee is clarified butter.
Oh.
G-H-E-E.
You know,
Oh,
ghee is
ghee.
something you can
Ghee
keep on your
or
bedside. Ghee.
You pronounce it key, but, yeah.
Key.
Ghee.
Ghee.
G-H-E-E.
G-H-E-E.
Yeah.
Never seen it.
It's shelf stable. It'll last on your counter for a month or more, and you can eat a couple of tablespoons a day.
Oh, that's good.
And it's
Do you
wonderful.
think the key in those Indian grocery stores is good?
Terrible. It's terrible.
Don't get it.
Never. Make your own. Doesn't take
Yeah.
long at all. 20 minutes on the flame, low flame.
So how does coconut water and the coconut meat fit into all of this?
Coconut water is very, very different. Coconut water is 99% water with metabolites in it, and the fat of the coconut is located in the
Meat of
white stuff, the meat of the coconut, and that is what is extracted into oil.
And I mean, from what I heard in a talk, the not to get the young coconut, but to get the kind that it was pictured there with the brown, because it takes 9 months for the coconut water to be filtered through the system, and then you get a pure coconut water.
Well, you're going to get different products, right? Young coconut has very different water. It has a lot less fat in the kernel,
Yes.
I mean in the white part, and it's a lot more water. And as it ages, the water, I mean it doesn't shrink, but it concentrates, and then the fat collects in the meat. So it's different. It's
Okay.
different composition. It's a very ancient, traditional, natural, healthful, cardioprotective, hepatoprotective, protects your liver, anti-infective fat. So please do not pay heed to the USA Today article. Eat coconut oil. Coconut oil has a very important 12-carbon fatty acid called lauric acid. This is a short-chain fatty acid, and it is digested, the short-chain fatty acids, which is carbon, 6 carbon, 8 carbon, 10, 12, all the way through 14, are digested very differently in your gut. So they don't tax your digestive processes in the same way that long chain, say 18 and 20 polyunsaturated fats do. They go into things called chylomicrons, and they're transferred through your system in a very, very different way. And they're easier to digest. So if you have digestive problems, coconut oil is very much easier to digest. So if you have gallbladder problems, coconut oil is far easier to digest than, say, corn oil. These fats are very anti-infective, the short carbon, the low short chain fatty acids. And you will notice that if you add this up, 47, 57, 67, 77, 87, 97, almost 95% of this is saturated. About 6.2% is monounsaturated, and 1.6 is polyunsaturated. So it's a very stable oil, very good for you. The groups, the tribes and the cultures that eat coconut oil have the least cardiac disease. They're very brainy because it feeds your brain. And they have beautiful skins. Place called Kerala in southern India. They have the longest lifespans, as a matter of fact. A lot of them live on coconut products. So when you have insulin resistance, everybody know what a carbohydrate is now, right?
Yep.
Okay. Everybody know what a protein is?
I want to hear what a carbohydrate is.
Okay. A carbohydrate is a bunch of sugars that are tied together in chains. So you take table sugar, and if you tie many molecules of the table sugar together, it turns into bread. If you tie many more molecules of the bread molecules, it turns into a fiber. And so carbohydrates can range from fiber to bread and pasta to pure sugar. And depending on what they are, they're digested very slowly, which is very good for you. So if they're not digested slowly, like plant fibers, they're really good for you. But if they're digested very fast, they turn into glucose very fast in your blood. And those are the ones that give you insulin resistance.
Say that again, those are the ones that what?
Give you insulin resistance. And
And
that's
those are
the
things
bread.
like bread.
Bread,
Yeah.
pasta, white rice. Every choice that you make, instead of eating white bread, you eat sourdough leavened, whole grain bread. It will reduce the time it takes for it to turn into glucose and cause this spike in your insulin. So that's a carbohydrate. Everyone know what a protein is?
You know, what surprised me is I was just reading, and it said gluten is a protein.
Yes.
And I said, you know, because you think of it as you think gluten-free bread, and I'm thinking carbohydrate, but it's
Oh, no,
gluten
it's
is a protein.
Gluten is a protein. Glutenin is a protein. And the reason they're getting rid of the protein is people are allergic to the protein of the carbohydrate. It's still got plenty of, in fact, it's got
yeah.
more carbs now. Without the gluten,
Yes.
the carbs will go, it'll
Well,
be
that's
sugar.
that's what surprised me. Okay.
This
So
is driving me crazy.
A lot of people crazy.
Yes,
It's
yes.
just environmentally safe.
Eggs are
Yeah.
proteins, meats are proteins, cheese contains a lot of proteins, cottage cheese,
Nuts.
nuts
Yogurt.
contain proteins. And then fat, everyone knows what fats are. So when these foods enter your body, what happens to the insulin is with carbohydrates, this is your blood sugar. Your blood sugar spikes up like that within the first half hour to hour. With protein, your blood sugar spikes up very little. And with fats, your blood sugar spikes up not at all. And when your blood sugar spikes up, this is your insulin resistance. This causes a whole bunch of insulin to be released. This causes less insulin to be released. This causes the least insulin to be released. And fats.
So if you have a piece of bread and you put tons of butter on it,
Yes.
that's better.
Yes, you read my mind. Yes, exactly. So bread with butter is gonna release less insulin. Bread with protein is gonna release less insulin into your bloodstream. Or it'll slow down the insulin release. But you just said something. You raised your eyebrows. That is, Sushma, now you're saying to eat fats with carbohydrates. that's a separate problem, which is now you're giving, your body uses to make energy carbohydrates and fats. These contain carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and these are the two things that it uses to make energy. When you combine fats and carbohydrates, your body is gonna first react to the carbohydrate and use up the carbohydrate because it doesn't want to leave carbohydrates or glucose in your bloodstream. So that's going to be used first, and this fat is going to go into fat storage. So you're going to get the carbohydrates that are going to cause an insulin response and get used up more, and then you've got more energy left over for the fat, and the body says, what do I do with the fats? The fats get stored, and you put on weight. So the best way to put on weight is to eat fats and carbs together, and the best way to lose weight is to separate your carbs from the fats. But in both cases, in all cases, if you eat a pure carb, you're going to have a jacked up insulin response. If you eat carbs with proteins, so if you're planning on eating a carbohydrate, eat protein before. Eat some meat before and bread afterwards, so that will slow down your insulin response. But protein is not used for energy, it's used to build your muscles. So the protein will not interfere with your energy metabolism. On the other hand, if you're trying to gain weight, take a piece of bread, slather on butter, and eat it.
Avocado might be, I mean, not as good as butter, but that's
Yeah.
another fat.
Avocado,
If you,
yeah.
just to mix it up a little.
Croissant with avocado.
We don't make gluten-free croissants.
So people who are trying to put on weight need to combine this and this. People who are trying to lose weight should combine this and eat this separately, or not eat this at all. And children who are growing up needs both carbohydrates and fat because they're going up and sideways. So you're gonna say, how do I prepare a family meal? It's very easy. You slice the bread very thin, right? So your children can take 5 slices of that bread, apply lots of fat to it, and eat it. You can take a very, very thin slice of bread, put lots of protein around it, eat the protein, then eat the bread with a little bit of butter, and you have yourself a slimming meal. The child has a fattening meal, and in between people can do whatever. But the insulin is what regulates how carbohydrates are assimilated, and that is the biggest problem in current society. There's other things that will cause insulin resistance. If you have mercury in your mouth, if you have amalgams, if you're on medications, antibiotics will fatten you up. It'll increase insulin resistance. Adrenal insults. If you are stressed out, suddenly people put on weight. And literally the body is protecting itself from an outside attack, even though it's an emotional attack on you. You find a lot of emotional eating happening, and the body is very smart. The body is going, oh my God, there's an emergency. The only problem is like a boss, like an abusive boss, that goes on for years and years, and people find that they put on 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 100 pounds, and when the boss is gone, they lose it all. So pay attention to your emotions and adrenal insults, because what's going to happen if you're under constant stress is your adrenals secrete adrenaline, and adrenaline causes glucose to flow into your blood, and glucose causes you to gain weight. The sugar causes you to gain weight. Heavy metals will, the nature, your body uses fats to store toxic things. So if you have lived in a very polluted place, if you have mercury in your mouth, if you took a lot of vaccines, if you're on a lot of toxic medications, you will put on weight because your body is saying, where do I put this? Into the fatty tissue, which is the most safe place to put it. And that is a very big lesson for people who are trying to lose weight. Please lose it slowly. Do not lose weight all at once. It's very toxic to the body because your body is releasing toxins as you lose weight, and you want to do it 1 pound a week or 1 pound a month. Do it very, very slowly, because those toxins will then get reabsorbed into your organs and make it much worse. So people who are losing weight rapidly sometimes feel very, very sick.
What about those people who say, oh, I'm so stressed out, I'm losing so much weight?
Yes, that's the other extreme. That's me.
Oh, yeah?
When I'm stressed out, I lose weight. Yes, yes. And that's the uniqueness of the body, where insulin acts in a very different way. And there are people who gain weight with extreme stress, and there are people who lose weight with extreme stress. And those people really need to watch what they're eating. A little bit of carbohydrates are very useful. Fats are very useful for people like that. Because you will, and a lot of people from stress experience lose bowel movements or poor digestion, and that's when they lose weight as well. I know I do. When I'm stressed out, my digestion, because the blood is rushing to your arms, and there's not enough blood left over for digestion, and you don't assimilate foods and minerals. So very, very important to be not stressed, especially when you're digesting foods. Step away from your office and so on. So a lot of things can cause insulin resistance. There are several natural paths that you can use to deal with insulin resistance. And you don't have to be overweight to be insulin resistant. I am insulin resistant. I was insulin. See that? See my acanthosis nigricans? If you eat enough of the bad stuff, you will get insulin resistant no matter what. So the one thing that was practiced at the beginning of the century was caloric restriction. So there was no insulin. They didn't know any better. Doctors would just starve that, especially type 1 diabetes, because if you ate food, you had no insulin, your food would turn into glucose, and you would die from hyperglycemia. You would die from glucose in your blood. And so doctors found that if they starved these children who had type 1 diabetes, they lived a little bit longer, but then they died of starvation. So that's a terrible way to live your life, because you die anyway. There is another diet called a carbogenic diet, and this is a little known diet, and we'll talk about it. And this is a diet where you eat, surprisingly, high carbohydrates, but no fat. Americans are tandem fueling fats and carbs and putting on weight. This is a diet where you eat high carbs, no fat, absolutely no salt, and it works its magic in a very different way through its effect on your kidneys and regulating your adrenaline secretion. And we'll talk about that. The third thing is a ketogenic diet, which is very popular these days, and a very high fat, low carb. So basically you're increasing your fats, you're getting your energy from your fats, not your carbohydrates. You're taking carbohydrates out of the equation. There's no insulin, your hormones regulate themselves, you lose weight, you feel energetic, and things are good. All of these diets are ways of living, so it takes time to get accustomed and adapted to them. So you can't just, from eating no fat today, eat 400 grams of fat tomorrow and not get diarrhea, say, or feel really queasy and so on. You cannot go from a high fat to a high carb diet without a lot of problems, so your body's got to get used to it. The third, fourth thing is intermittent fasting. And that is what Sunshine is doing, partly, and partly ketogenic, and which is why she's the big lab rat, very game, very sporting lab rat you are. That's intermittent fasting, where your body doesn't have food in it for 12 to 16 hours, and when there's no food, guess what there is none of? Which hormone goes away?
Insulin.
Insulin. When there's no food, there's no insulin, there's no insulin resistance, no problem. And when there's no insulin resistance, two other hormones that got messed up because of the insulin get reset. So there are people who crave food. When you go on an intermittent fast, there's something, the appetite hormone called ghrelin, which was dysregulated, becomes regulated, and you don't have cravings anymore. You don't constantly want food. And ghrelin and leptin are critical to the regulation of food and satiety. And when you have insulin dysregulation, these two hormones get really messed up. So intermittent fasting is very good for people who have cravings that they know are not that great for them. Like they'll want to eat bread all the time or pasta all the time. The intermittent fasting takes away that edge, that craving.
And I found that I used to have breakfast right away, a big breakfast, but not cereals and breads and stuff, but protein or fish or whatever, broth. And now I won't eat usually till around 11:30 or 12, and I'm not hungry. I keep my fluids up, but I'm not hungry at all. and I feel so much energy. So it's really surprised me.
And you do that on a daily basis then?
Yeah.
Because the way I understood it was, I used to not eat breakfast either, but then I was told that if I didn't eat like every certain number of hours, my body would hold the calories back, thinking that I was starving. And actually, I think that that you and I have similar digestion.
Yes.
I eat all the time.
Yes.
But I have friends who've been told not to eat, to leave 5 hours between each meal. So it is interesting. I thought the intermittent fasting was like 1 or 2 days a week you have caloric restriction.
So it's very different. It's
Yeah.
not a calorically restricted diet at all. You just eat in a smaller window. That's all.
So
So if you're eating
interesting,
2,000 calories a day, you eat them in a 6 to 8 hour window instead of spread over a long time.
There's no concern that it's like, oh, your body's just going to shut down for those 12 hours because it's going to conserve the calories, because it's not long enough for your body to think it's starving, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm feeding it really well.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it just really surprised me. I love it.
I'm interested.
And every diet is not for everybody. Different people are very individual. Some people will do well with one versus the other. Exercise, very important. You know, can't emphasize enough. And gut bacteria. If you don't have gut bacteria, your insulin is going to be shot. Metformin, the way metformin acts is by increasing bacteria called Akkermansia in your gut, because metformin cannot get digested. So you eat the pill, it goes back into your distal gut, your colon, and it breeds bacteria called the Akkermansia, which cause your liver not to secrete too much glucose. So gut bacteria are amazing, and they're geniuses at regulating your blood sugar. So there's one thing you want to do in your life: with every single meal, eat a ferment of your choice. Whatever. You can even drink beer. But all the beer is carbs. There's unpasteurized beer, which has a lot of good bugs in it. But you can eat sauerkraut, you can eat yogurt, you can eat unpasteurized wines. The old wines that were healthy were unpasteurized. When they're pasteurized, you're killing off all the good things in the beverages.
Did you say that at every meal to eat something fermented?
Yes, every single meal. If you do
Just
nothing else,
Just a little bit.
just a little bit.
Yeah.
And eat it first? Do you eat it first?
During the meal, you can eat it any way you want.
And it's just a forkful or two,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah, forkful.
it's not a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be much.
And we're talking about yogurt as well as
Yeah.
sauerkraut or
Yeah. Yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut,
Mi-
kvass,
Mi-
kombucha.
miso.
Miso, sure. Yeah.
I've been stirring a spoon of miso paste into my hot rice.
what,
so
what did
yes,
you just
yes.
say?
I
What
take a
is that?
spoon of miso paste. It's
What is miso
and
paste?
stir it into. I don't cook with it because the cooking kills the ferment.
Yes,
I think.
cooking.
So you just add it as a instead of putting soy sauce on. I just take a spoon of miso. I just learned that, and it's delicious.
What is that word?
Fermented soybeans.
Miso,
soybean.
M-I-S-O, miso paste, and then the white one is the
Miso.
most mild, and then there's brown and there's a dark one.
And
What
what do you
does it
mix
taste
it with?
like?
I just take a brown rice and I just take a spoon
Oh,
and I
whatever,
just-
I see.
instead of soy
Mhm.
sauce.
Oh.
Miso paste.
For people with insulin resistance, it's absolutely critical you eat cinnamon, turmeric. If you drink caffeinated beverages, drink green tea instead of coffee. Coffee will cause insulin resistance, green tea will not.
Coffee,
Apple cider vinegar, raw potatoes, if you have, because the potato fiber goes into your gut where the bacteria grow, and they will talk to your liver and reduce your insulin resistance.
How do you suggest the raw
Here,
potato
I
is
have it
ingested?
here.
Grate it.
Oh, thank you.
You
Great.
just grate it,
Yeah.
Put in a salad.
grate it into a salad.
Okay, great.
And then there's different types. So insulin resistance will eventually lead to diabetes of one form or the other. In the very young, your pancreas stops making insulin, so that's type 1 diabetes. There's type 2 diabetes, which is what the bulk of our population has today. And then there's gestational diabetes, where because of resistance to placental hormones, you get insulin resistance. So women will have very high blood sugar in pregnancy. Especially as women are older in their pregnancy, they have more progesterone, and more progesterone is more insulinogenic, so it causes more insulin resistance. But all of this can be cured, well, this and this can be cured with a good diet. In fact, it can be completely reversed. So does everybody know the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes?
I forget.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Okay, type 1 diabetes is when your pancreas are shot and you cannot produce insulin at all.
Uh,
This typically happens in young children after vaccines in particular. A lot of kids get type 1 diabetes, and then they need insulin shots for life.
mercury, huh?
Mercury, aluminum, a
Oh,
lot of
God.
bad stuff. So, or for any other reason. And type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance related diabetes, where your insulin, you excrete too much insulin, then too little insulin, and eventually it dries out. So this is lifestyle related. This is where your pancreas got injured at some point and you can't make it anymore. When you have insulin resistance, you accumulate, this is your liver area, abdominal organs, you accumulate a lot of body fat. And this is a normal abdomen, this is a slice of the abdomen. Like if you sliced me from here, this and this is what you would see. And you can see with insulin resistance, there's a lot of visceral fat. And when you go on a carbogenic or a ketogenic diet, you're basically sucking this out.
Wow.
You're changing the balance of your macronutrients so that this turns into this. You always need abdominal fat because your organs need to be protected, but you don't need pounds and pounds and pounds of it. So that's what the abdominal cross sections look like. The worst thing that happens with insulin resistance is capillary disease. So you have a circulatory system which consists of the large blood vessels and the small blood vessels. So they branch, and then turn into capillaries. And it's the capillaries that get damaged from sugar in your blood. What happens is the endothelial lining, just as I have this, imagine this happening on the inside of your capillaries. The lining gets hardened and the capillaries are putting out nourishment, oxygen and food into your tissue. And that is the point at which they cannot work. And when they cannot work, guess what happens to your heart tissue? Your heart tissue has a capillary attack, and that's a heart attack. Your spleen does not get fed. Your liver does not get fed. You get capillary petechiae. Your capillaries break open. You get big blotches like this, where it looks like a burn. This is called a desquamination, erythema and edema, similar to burning. So you see patches of red on your skin, and that's the capillary leak syndrome. And what you find is when you go on a ketogenic diet, this just disappears, and your skin is a marvelous, marvelous indicator of things that might be wrong with you.
So that's this stuff?
That is this stuff. That's
But isn't
this
that
stuff.
bruises?
This might be a bruise, but it looks like that, capillary. So your capillaries become very weak, and they can be easily bruised because they break, because they're hardened. And this is an extreme case of capillary leak. And they leak. They start leaking fluid into outside tissues. This is capillaritis. A lot of people start with this. There's Kawasaki disease, also in many cases vaccine-induced in small children, where their capillaries break. And their capillaries break, it takes a while to cure them. But children get cured in adults, diet.
Oh, that's a lot.
And what happens with capillary disease is your high blood glucose levels are damaging the cells inside your capillaries because they're taking in abnormal amounts of glucose. And that forms things called glycoproteins. So the protein, it's a sticky substance, and they get attached to the proteins on their surface. And there's something called a basement membrane in the vessel walls, and that grows very thick. So your capillary walls get thick and become weaker. The capillary walls are supposed to be very elastic. And literally one red blood cell thick is how narrow they are. But when they get thick, they cannot expand. And when they cannot expand, they cannot shunt oxygen and nourishment into your tissues. And that's one of the biggest reasons why people with insulin resistance drop dead from heart attacks. It's capillary disease. It's not big artery disease. So now the capillaries are in your heart, they stop working, your heart tissue does not have enough oxygen or nourishment, and it has death. And when those dead cells die, guess where they get transported out from? Back from the capillaries. And they cause debris to collect in your coronary arteries. So clearing of the coronary arteries is not going to reduce heart disease. It's backwards. but clearing up capillary disease will prevent heart attacks. This is a very important point because we are putting stents into people in the expectation that their lives will be extended if you put stents into a person. No, stents will not increase lifespans. All epidemiological studies, big meta-analyses, stents do not prevent heart attacks. They will prevent that person from dying in that moment when the debris accumulates, but they do not prevent future heart attacks. Only capillary renewal and restoration will do that. So now, blood is leaking through, protein is leaking into your body, so you have inflammation all over your body. Your organs and tissues are not getting nourished, they're not getting nutrients. Your retina, this is very oxygen rich. Your kidneys require a lot of oxygen. That's where you get the first sign of disease. You get retinal disease, you stop seeing as good, you get nephropathy in your kidneys, you get numbness and tingling in your extremities. These are all capillary diseases, capillary related diseases, and very easily curable. So this is just to say insulin is a hormone, and this is a type 1 diabetic who was starved because she didn't have insulin, and so once insulin was injected, she put on body fat and things started working. So it is your hormones, not calories in, calories out, that determine your weight. It's your hormone that regulates how many pounds you will be, not how much you eat or don't eat. And so the big lessons here, and it's going to be hard for you to become one with these because everywhere in the world you're hearing the opposite message. Eating fast does not make you fat. In fact, it makes you thin. Eating fats makes you thin.
Can I change that?
Sure.
It's going to be easy for us to change that thing.
Which thing?
You said it's going to be hard for us to.
Oh, yes. You're the change agents. That's right. That's right. Yes.
Words are
Never
so
always
important.
be positive. Yes. So you guys are going to go out into the world and say, eating fat does not make you fat. Eating carbs makes you fat. Saturated fat does not cause heart disease. As you notice, saturated fat consumption went down 45%, and heart disease rates went up astronomically. You want to avoid processed foods that are called light or low fat or low cholesterol. That's just marketing, not based on any science.
Or sugar-free.
Or sugar-free. Limit your starchy and refined carbs to reverse insulin resistance. Eliminate all refined sugars, refined flours, refined fats. You've got to eat sea salt, kraut juice, kelp, things that are rich in minerals. You need minerals.
What's ACV?
Apple cider vinegar.
Oh,
Apple cider vinegar. Oh.
gotcha.
Very rich. That's something you can keep by your bedside. Take a slug of apple cider vinegar, very rich in minerals. Very, very rich.
It's extra virgin olive oil.
So this is gross, but I wanted to. That's a fatty liver, and that's a plain liver.
It's making me
Oh
hungry.
my God.
So ducks, at a certain point in their life, they'll gorge on seeds and grains. When seeds and grains are ample in the world around them, they'll gorge, and that's what their liver looks like. And in the old days, they would take these ducks and they would butcher them and they would make foie gras. But now they take these ducks and put a pipe inside them and feed them corn, and then so it's an unnatural way of creating foie gras. But really, a fatty liver versus a non-fatty liver look like this. And these ducks revert right back to this liver when times get lean. So man or humans or animals were meant to eat lots of fats or lots of grains, then no grains, because we live between feast and famine, which makes a great case for intermittent fasting and eating with the seasons. And that's foie gras. And what is this? This is foie gras too. The American diet today is exactly like the foie gras duck diets. It has 266 carb grams, of which 120 are sugar, plain sugar. We have 80 fat grams and 80 protein grams, average daily intake, and that is a recipe for foie gras in your liver.
Hardly.
Oh, Lord.
He's pouring Cheerios down her throat.
Jesus.
Oh my God.
You'll send us all these,
I
right?
will,
Yeah.
What in the world?
Yes. And the food pyramid has done this to the health of our communities.
See that? You see that? It's pouring it down.
They should have the funnel be a food pyramid.
Oh yeah, oh, what a good
Yeah,
idea.
that's
I'll do
right.
that, actually, I'll do that.
Okay.
That's right.
That's brilliant, yes. Oh, what a good idea. So now you multiply high carb diets plus drugs over many decades and many generations, and you have a recipe for disaster in all age groups, small, middle-aged, and old. This is how American Indians ate 150 years ago. Look at that body, it's beautiful. Look at that size of look at that dental arch. These are beautiful, beautiful teeth, not a cavity, high cheekbones, you know, just beautiful musculature, and you know, this is how they are today. You know, these are children on reservations eating very high carbohydrate, very refined foods. So we sort of want to get back to our ancestral roots. And you've got to think of insulin resistance as an iceberg. Think of it as an iceberg where you're seeing little things. You're feeling a little tired. You've got a little bit of brown spotting. You've got a little bit of stuff going on. You're either gaining weight or losing weight. What's happening underneath is a bunch of really, really toxic things in your body simply from having an overabundance of glucose in your bloodstream. So coronary artery disease, polycystic ovary syndrome, type 2 diabetes, joint pain. There's a lot of joint pain when you can't get blood and oxygen to your joint. Inflammation, Alzheimer's and dementia, Parkinson's, neurological and mental problems, cancers, especially breast, colon, liver, pancreas, and kidney problems on a high carbohydrate. Cancers love carbohydrates because they can go into anaerobic fermentation. They cannot burn fat. Cancers cannot burn fat. So for a cancer person, for a person with cancer, a ketogenic diet, especially brain cancer, really helps. Skin and limb infections. If you find you have skin infections or yeast infections or vaginal yeast infections or toenail funguses, consider the bottom of this iceberg. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, sleep apnea. You have sleep apnea, that's a problem with insulin resistance. All-cause mortality just goes. So you die from a bunch of different causes for which there's a bunch of different drugs, but really only one solution, and it's pretty damn simple. You know, if you know we can do it, so can everybody else. It causes insulin and leptin and ghrelin resistance. It causes high uric acid in your blood, so it causes your blood to become very acidic. Your blood is alkaline, it's about 7.35, and sugar in your blood will cause uric acid formation. Stones, kidney stones, gallstones. It increases your small dense LDL particles, so fat oxidizes, the cholesterol oxidizes in your blood, and that's a bad thing. But mainly, it damages your arterial walls, and that's what damages your tissue and causes inflammation.
Is digestion a slow release of insulin? Is that basically what it is?
Essentially, so when you're digesting food, the food is going into your blood, and that food, which is turned into glucose, the carbohydrates, will cause insulin to be released.
So how quickly is insulin released? Let's say you have dinner.
Within 30 minutes, the insulin has to deal. If you ate pure sugar at dinner, it's going to hit your bloodstream in 5 minutes, and your insulin has to be on the guard, releasing it out of the pancreas to mop up that sugar, because you can't have more than about a teaspoon of sugar in your blood. And so if you were to experiment with that occasionally, or once, not occasionally, eat some sugar at dinner and follow it with rice and some bread and see what happens. You will feel soporific, you'll feel like resting, you'll feel like you're in a food coma, and you have to rest because your body is literally shutting down while the insulin is trying to mop up the glucose from your body.
So the reason people lose weight when they have diarrhea is that insulin hasn't had a chance to come out.
Diarrhea is for a very separate reason. The diarrhea is because the food did not get digested in the upper intestines, and is going through your body without.
Which is what I mean, that it's gone through your body.
Yeah.
And so it hasn't had the opportunity to release the insulin.
Nothing
Or the
is
body
happening.
hasn't.
It's not gone into your bloodstream at all. It's just in and out. And that can happen from having poisons in your food when you're eating it,
Right.
things that you're not used to, too much, too little of something. So, but it's a separate tube. Digestive tube is sitting inside the circulatory tube, which is sitting inside the cerebrospinal tube. So think of tubes that are completely blocked off with walls, and these walls become permeable when you have insulin resistance. Hypertension. Hypertension goes away when you change your diet and lifestyle dramatically. So this is it's a cluster. You have high triglycerides, you have high blood pressure, you have insulin resistance, you've got a lot of fat here, you got elevated blood glucose, you have inflammatory markers, and that's a recipe not just for diabetes, it's a recipe for heart disease as well. So it increases risk of all chronic disease. But you always have to be positive, and there's good news. And the good news is all this junk that we have in our body gets pushed out sooner or later. You are regenerating your body literally every day, and as you can see, the small intestinal cells get regenerated in 2 to 4 days. The stomach cells in a couple of weeks. White blood cells 2 to 5 days. So you have the ability to regenerate your capillaries, your endothelial lining, which is how Lori reversed her heart disease. By changing her diet, she has a new set of capillaries, she's got new growth in her organs, and that's because your body's so smart. Your platelets regenerate in 10 days, your intestinal cells in 20 days, your epidermis, your skin cells regenerate in 10 to 30 days. So give your skin a good scrub, eat a good diet, and you'll have glowing, beautiful skin. Various parts of your body regenerate. What doesn't regenerate is
The liver, the brain.
the liver regenerates every 3 months. But
Oh, it
one,
does?
yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah. You can destroy your liver and grow a new liver in 3
Oh, it's almost
under a
like
year.
one of those plumerias that can regenerate. You cut it in
Yeah,
half.
it's like a salamander's tail.
Oh, no.
Yeah. A neuron will not regenerate. Your sperm cells, your eggs will not regenerate. So
Oh,
if you
no.
destroy that, that's forever. Which,
Telomeres?
huh?
Telomeres, do they?
Telomeres, well, they're inside of cells,
Yeah.
and so telomeres cause them to divide, cells to divide. And so any cell that divides will regenerate. But your eggs, which you got from your mom and grandmother, will
Oh, wow.
not change. Or if they die, they're dead. Fingernails, 3 to 6 months. As you change your diet, you'll find that your fingernails. So look at these things. Look at the smell and sight of your pee. Taste your pee. Look at your fingernails. Look at your skin. That'll tell you what you need to do with your
And even
health.
teeth.
And
Even teeth can
Need them what?
even teeth can.
Teeth, yeah.
Did you say taste your pee?
yeah. Taste your first
Well,
morning.
smell it.
You actually do it?
I do.
If you don't have the nerve, at least start smelling it, right?
Yes.
Smelling it, looking
I
at it.
smell
no.
your
And looking at
Your
pee.
teeth.
Yes.
Oh, pee.
Very therapeutic.
He was related to Nero.
Yes. And Morarji
He
Desai.
drank his pee.
Our Prime Minister Morarji Desai drank his pee and lived to be 87 or something.
And so what's
But
the
they do
benefit?
say which one and how to go
Yes.
about doing
But you
it.
can't be on medications, guys. If you're off, you have to be on a very good, clean diet, no medications, very
What
therapeutic.
would the benefit of
Okay.
drinking
Cows
this?
pee. I thought you can.
Very good, very good.
Really?
When I go to India, I get pee from the organically, actually permaculture raised cows, and amazing.
And
Very good.
supposedly the pee is homeopathic.
Very good, yeah. It's very homeopathic, yeah. It has metabolites that do a pass through your immune system a second time. It's also very antiseptic. But if pee turns you off,
Never
drink
heard of it.
spring water instead. Yeah.
With
And
salt.
salted it. Yes, salted it.
Oh,
Baby steps.
I will skip over what is proteins. Everybody knows, or your hair, nails, feathers, enzymes, all carrier pigments
send
are
it
made
to
from.
us.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Carbohydrates, you're asking what a carbohydrate is. A single sugar looks like this, a double sugar, which is table sugar, sucrose looks like this, and multiple complex carbohydrates like plant fibers look like that. Many chains attached. So the insulin works fastest on this. This is the lowest common denominator, and all these sugars eventually turn into that inside your bloodstream. So you want to, and especially nowadays, you want to minimize that. This is what fats look like. They're also carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and strangely enough, carbohydrates are also fat, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, because you get energy from them. So you can get your energy from a carb, or you can get your energy from a fat. This is olive oil. This is largely coconut oil. This is the linoleic, the multi unsaturated oils, and these are the very unsaturated oils, the fish oils, the flaxseed oils. You should eat the unsaturated oils in the form of food, like eat flaxseed. So make lots of flaxseed chutney. We'll do it again, and eat that. It's very rich in those. And this is something that's kind of interesting. But you notice how all the infectious diseases have gone down, but all the chronic diseases have gone up.
All the what disease?
Chronic diseases.
Oh, chronic.
Crohn's, diabetes, multiple sclerosis, asthma, and we have vaccinations, and vaccinations have caused the tamping down of infectious diseases, but the diseases that have sprung up in return are far, far more deadly. So take your hard pills, get an infection, and don't get chronic disease. That's
Do you
the
think
lesson.
the vaccines have anything to do with the wide rise in crime?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. Very largely responsible.
Wow.
Every vaccine has 300 micrograms of mercury in it. But that's something to keep in your mind.
Wow.
You won't be sick on a good diet. You're not going to get flus and pneumonias and all that.
Wow.
You don't need those. Especially as you grow older, you have less ability to detoxify the mercury and aluminum in vaccines.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Can you offset the effect of the vaccine with diet?
Yes. lot of ferments, lot of fats, glutathione-rich foods like raw milk. Glutathione takes heavy metals and chelates them. Egg yolks, lots of egg yolks.
For how long?
Throughout. Sulfur-containing vegetables. Sulfur will chelate, MSM sulfur. So there's a lot you can do. And homeopathic remedies like thuja help with vaccine injuries, after vaccine injuries. So there's a cost to lowering your blood sugar levels with drugs. You're not addressing the fundamental cause. How are we doing for time? We have 15 minutes. I can go into that, but the premise of our club is good food, not medicine. All of these are actually very dangerous. Insulin is an anabolic hormone, and my friend who has severe diabetes just got breast cancer because insulin stimulates cancers, because it causes cells to divide. It is an anabolic, so it's good in a child, but it's not good in an adult. Metformin is not metabolized by the body, it goes to your liver because it's a net toxin. And if you have kidney disease caused by diabetes, then metformin can cause something called ketoacidosis, and people have died from it. Aspirin causes thinning of your blood, bleeding, it damages your kidneys greatly. And so there are antidotes to all of these. Beta blockers will cause earlier death, they will destroy your kidneys. Acid blockers give you massive heart attacks like my friend got from 20 years of eating.
What's a typical acid blocker?
Prilosec, pantoprazole, H1 blockers, there's a whole bunch of brand names, but they're all acid blocking drugs, and they're deadly. They prevent mineral absorption, and so sooner or later you run out of minerals, you get cardiac failure.
I forget what beta blocker, I've heard that.
Beta blockers are used in heart disease. They affect your calcium channel working, and they're extremely toxic. They'll cause weight gain, they'll cause kidney function to get destroyed. Diuretics are very dangerous, because your kidney is managing all of that. So you're taking that away from your kidneys. There's a reason your blood pressure goes up when you have insulin resistance, because your body is looking at all those capillaries which are hardened, and it's increasing your blood pressure to get the food and oxygen into your extremities. And by giving it blood pressure reducing meds, you're actually messing up your ability to nourish so people on blood pressure medicines die early because now they're not getting nourished. So your body is insanely intelligent. Your body is very smart, and every single minute your blood pressure is going up and down and up and down for very good reasons.
And so women shouldn't take the daily baby aspirin.
Oh, never, never, never. It is.
I've given up my blood
It is.
pressure medication, and
Yes.
I don't think it's made any difference. So, you know,
It'll simply destroy kidney function. They're very toxic to the kidneys. So you don't take drugs, and what do I do? What do I do? And so that is the case for the ketogenic diet, which is a really awesome diet.
Look into ketogenic.
Yes. We'll get down to practical things. This is a man, 2,100 calories per day. He's getting 600. This is the biker. He bikes 150 miles a week, so maybe you're gonna eat a lot less than this. He gets 600 calories of protein, 150 calories of carbs, and and 2,100 calories of fat. So he's getting almost 2,600. Sorry. So about 80% or 74% fats, 21% proteins, and 5% carbs. He's a professor from UC Davis, and he was one of the first people who sort of discovered and wrote about the biochemistry of fat metabolism. And he was virtually fired from his job for 30, 40 years ago, saying that fats are good for us. His name is Stephen Finney, and he has wonderful lectures on YouTube if you guys want to watch them. But this is his daily breakfast: black coffee, 4 sausages. Lunch, he eats mixed greens, wild fish, black olives, blue cheese, yogurt and olive. For a snack, he'll eat nuts, broth, soft cheese. I mean, what's not to like about this? It's delicious. Dinner, he'll make tomato bisque, which is lots of whipped cream with tomatoes in it, a little bit of tomato steak, buttered green beans, sauteed mushrooms, and cream with berries. If you have a sweet tooth, use a sugar called erythritol. I would say avoid sugars, just eat berries, and from time to time eat maple syrup and honey, and you'll be fine. So that's a sample high-fat diet for you.
Yeah, I should have that one, but the coffee isn't so good, is it?
He drinks coffee. You don't have to drink coffee. Yeah, coffee will jack
So
you.
your coffee's all right.
But you could have black coffee with coconut oil, whipped cream, as long as you're not putting sugar in the coffee.
What was his name again?
Stephen Finney.
Teven.
Stephen, S-T-E-P-H-E-N, P-H-I-N-N-E-Y. Finney with a P. He's awesome. This is where your personality, your individualism comes in. 50 grams of carb per day is not right for everybody. Some people thrive on 100 grams of carb. Some people thrive on 150 grams of carb. On 300 and 400 grams of carb, everyone will get insulin resistance. But you can calibrate how many carbs you eat.
And good carbs.
And good carbs. So there's many different levels of carbs. See what works for you. So experiment. You don't have to stick with this routine or that routine, but just understand the general principles, and you'll be able to say, okay, 50 grams per day works best for me, or moderate 50 to 100 grams works best for me. And it's useful to learn a little bit about carb calories. Every gram of carb has 4 calories. Every gram of protein has 4 calories. And every gram of fat has 9 calories. So do your math, daily math. It's good for you to do the daily math. It will increase the mobilization of fats from your fat tissue. And then when the fats go into your bloodstream, the liver takes that fat and breaks it up into little things called ketone bodies. Ketone bodies are acetoacetate and hydroxybutyrate. These are 2 carbon fatty acids or fat-like substances that will nourish your whole body with energy.
Ketones will nourish the body.
So the fats turn into ketones. The fats break down into ketones, and then you eat your ketones. You get energized from the ketones.
But someone told me that you get like lack of potassium.
Yes. In the 50s, there was this very popular ketogenic diet, and a lot of people dropped dead from lack of potassium, lack of sodium in their diet, because they were doing high fat and low salt. Do not believe the low salt diet. If you're eating fats, eat lots of salt.
Does potassium serve as a substitute for salt?
It's better to eat a whole sea salt. It contains potassium, sodium, magnesium, chloride, all sorts of minerals. So when you are on a ketogenic diet, remember to eat salt. Do not hesitate to eat 3 to 4 teaspoons of salt, salty water, and you'll get it. If you eat enough ferments, you'll get plenty of salt. But that's a very good point. On a ketogenic diet, you excrete water. What happens is your kidneys don't keep so much water because you're eating more fats, and when they push out water, salts get pushed out. So you got to replete with salts. Eating proteins before carbohydrates will reduce insulin spikes. 29% less after 30 minutes if you eat it. So if you have a chicken and a piece of bread, eat the chicken, then the bread, and the effect of the bread on your insulin will be reduced by 30%. And in case you don't believe about the health impact of the ketogenic diet, here's actual research done by Stephanie and Wolek. They look low carb, low this, moderate carb, low glycemic index diet, etc. Your weight decreases the greatest with a ketogenic diet. Your hemoglobin A1C decreases the most. Your glucose levels go down the most. Your total cholesterol declines on a high-fat diet. Your LDL increases the least. Your HDL goes up. They call it the good cholesterol, but that's another whole discussion. And your triglycerides, which is the biggest marker of heart disease, go down dramatically. So all inflammation, remember that iceberg and the stuff under the iceberg? That's all this stuff. That's what goes away. Same thing with hemoglobin A1C. Same thing with the ApoE, the heart disease markers. And this is a ketogenic diet, and I'll send this to you. You can look at it yourself. But I kind of wanted to show you some slides of people who have actually done this diet. So you want to avoid cooking oils at all times. These are very toxic oils. Eat good fats, butter, raw butter, cheese, olive oils, good olive oils. There's a lot of fraud in oils, so be careful what kind of oils you get. These are all good fats: ghee, sour cream, coconut oil, etc. You'll get into nutritional ketosis, meaning you're burning those ketones. And we've talked about what ketosis is. It's very good for you. And this is what is one of the groups that I'm in. I just snapped pictures. May 2015, this person was at 220 pounds. June 18, a month later, 201 pounds, so she lost 20 pounds. July 18th, 190 pounds, so she lost 30 pounds. August 18, 180 pounds, 181 pounds, for a total of 40 pounds. This is from a ketogenic diet, improved every single insulin inflammatory marker. This is a person who did Eric Westman is a great doctor who actually teaches his patients how to do a ketogenic diet. She lost 185 pounds. She tried every other kind of diet. And she talks a lot. I mean, there are YouTube videos of Lynn Daniel Ivy talking about her story. This is a person who lives in San Francisco, Suzanne Ryan, ketogenic diet. And it's a delicious diet, This is a person, I sent it out on if you have Facebook, it's on our Facebook page. They administered this diet to their grandma, who is 89 years old. She went keto, and she got, you see the changes in her? Black hair growing back.
Wow.
Black hair is growing in, darker than it ever was before. A decade ago it went gray like that, now it's darkening. No event, she has a pacemaker in her heart, no events, no longer pre-diabetic, labs are fantastic, she had a blood clot in her body that went away. And you notice this little big black blob here, dark brown blob? See how much it's shrunk?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was this wide, it has shrunk to that. Her complexion was a lot wrinklier, her complexion has improved dramatically, skin quality has improved dramatically, and look at the changes that have happened to her. Lost 38 pounds, petechiae gone. Petechiae are little blood spots, and that's from capillary destruction from insulin resistance. So those are gone, skin is clear, down to shirt sizes, hair twice as black, face spot lightening, acid reflux, so she was on acid blocking drugs, that's all gone. Edema, she had swelling in her leg, that's gone. Spine pain is gone, she had botched surgery. Her fog is lifting, she had some dementia that's going away. Chronic bronchitis is gone, allergies are gone, strength returning, sleep improved, her sense of humor is coming back. She was in a pacemaker and her heart function is up to 65%, blood work is great. She's off all her medications, including trimethoprim, pantoprazole, which is the acid blocker, gabapentin, and she was on allergy meds for all her life almost, and that's gone. Prediabetes is gone, and they are recommending 1 avocado a day for additional potassium. And why do you need the potassium? Because you need minerals. So. This is called acanthosis nigricans. This is the brown stuff that is the sugar, oxidized sugar, depositing itself in various body parts. And this person went keto and cleared up. Acanthosis nigricans. That's the Latin name for liver spots.
Never heard that term.
And this is a joke. You went on low carb, you lost 90 pounds, lowered your cholesterol, cured your high blood pressure, and now you're walking 5 miles a day. But I'm warning you, a low carb diet is bad for your health. So that's about the ketogenic diet. We have intermittent fasting to cover, and are you able to wait for 5-10 more minutes, or should we do it next time?
I'm gonna have to.
I say go for it.
Go for it next time?
Next time.
Next time? Okay.
time.
Next time.
A lot to
Next time.
digest.
But can you send us
I will send you the
some
everything.
of the intermittent
Yeah.
papers, we can read it ahead of
Yeah.
time?
Yeah. Intermittent fasting is very easy, and when combined with the ketogenic diet, is very, very powerful.
Feels good.
But
Look at
for me now, trying to gain weight and losing it so much, that wouldn't be a good diet.
For you, it would not be a good diet.
Yeah.
You need to have carbohydrates and very good complex carbohydrates in your diet,
Yeah.
and fats too, fats and carbohydrates. All right, I'm gonna switch this off.
And I'll be here next month.
Okay.
Yeah.